Hello, this is Archie Dunlop with Talking Astrology with Archie on Tuesday, June the 13th, 2023. I want to start off by talking a little more about the planet Pluto. Recently, I did a video about the effect of Pluto moving out of Aquarius and back into Capricorn. And I said that it happened on June the 11th, and it stays in Capricorn until January the 21st of next year. So some of you were slightly concerned by this. You were worried about, what it might mean, particularly if you perhaps had the sun or the ascendant close to this 0 Aquarius degree, whether you should be worried. Well, I must emphasize that there is nothing to worry about. Pluto is a transpersonal planet. It's generational, it's collective, and very often Pluto impacts our generation, our world, society, politics, and it doesn't really have much of an impact on the individual. Now, that might seem a controversial thing to say, but I think it is the case. So, don't be worried, for example, if Pluto is going to conjunct your sun, transiting Pluto is going to conjunct your sun. You might not feel it. Or it might just be a psychological event. When you've got Pluto conjunct your sun, you might feel more intense, perhaps more introspective than usual, or maybe you're going to have a desire to make things happen. Pluto is a planet often related to power and transformation. So what I'm saying is it needn't be an external event when Pluto hits a major thing in your chart. It can be something internal, something psychological, and there's no reason why it actually can't be a fortunate event. I don't regard Pluto as being a malefic planet. It depends on the situation. Now, in that video, I skimmed over some aspects of its cycle. Now, I said that on June the 11th, Pluto goes back into Capricorn, and then on January the 21st, it returns to Aquarius. And I might have given the impression that that was it. It was a done deal. Well, unfortunately, it's not quite that simple. If we're looking at it from a geocentric point of view, a geocentric point of view is when we make the Earth the center of the solar system. Now, that might sound nonsense, but we are looking at the planets from the Earth. I mean, stuff is happening on Earth. It's not happening on Mercury or the Sun or Jupiter. It's happening on Earth. So it's probably reasonable to make the Earth the center of the solar system, even though we know that in a scientific sense it's the Sun. And that's why we have retrograde motion, where planets appear to go backwards. So from a geocentric perspective, when Pluto goes into Aquarius on January the 21st, 2024, it goes forward into Aquarius, but it goes retrograde again. And in fact, on I think it is September the 2nd, 2024, it actually goes back into Capricorn again. Then it spends a few months in Capricorn, and finally, November the 19th, 2024, Pluto makes its final entrance into Aquarius, and it stays there until 2043. So I thought I would clear that issue up. So as far as what Pluto means, some further thoughts about it. I was looking back a at the history books, not quite the history books, that's a metaphor. Does anyone have any history books anymore? So in the early 1530s, Pluto was in Aquarius. That was when Henry VIII was King of England. And that was the time when Henry VIII started to take over the church, when he I think he made it illegal to send money to Rome, or for Rome to collect taxes. I think Anne Boleyn was given a position. So it was a time when the king started to take over the state. Now, that might seem just like history, but if you were in England in the early 1530s, it would have been completely dramatic. You know, England had been a Catholic country for a very, very long time, and suddenly the king wants to start taking everything over, wanting to take over the church, starting a process of, making himself head of the Church of England. And this was happening when Pluto was moving into Aquarius, and that reinforces the idea that Pluto in Aquarius is about power. Governments wanting to positively take things over. And as I said in the last video, Hitler came to power on January the 30th, 1933, when Pluto was in Aquarius. I mean, Henry VIII is a different situation. I think there were plenty of positive things about Henry VIII breaking from the Catholic Church, but it goes to show how Pluto in Aquarius might work. So what we have to try to do is we have to look at past events in history and see how they might relate to the present. Now, as far as today is concerned, I'm going to move straight to today's astrology, and it's Tuesday. It's June the 13th, 2023, and the big focus is the moon. You'll see that the moon is at around 28 Aries. Now, if you are in Europe or Asia or Australia, you're going to have a certain feeling that nothing much can be done. I mean, you might try to sort things out, you might try to take initiatives, but I don't think you're going to be particularly successful. You're just not going to be able to see them through to completion. That's because the moon is void of course. In other words, the moon has made its last aspect to a traditional planet. Those are the planets going Sun, Moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn. Pluto is not a traditional planet. So the moon has made its last major aspect to a traditional planet, and so it's kind of void. It's going nowhere. So I would recommend that you don't make any big plans for today. And you certainly don't expect to complete any initiatives. Now, if you're in the Americas, it's different. Towards the end of the day, that's when the moon moves from Aries into Taurus. Things could be very fortunate because the moon is new sign. It's starting to make new aspects, and in particular, it's beginning to make a conjunction to Jupiter. So if you're in the Americas, by the end of the day, you can start taking really quite fortunate actions, and it may be a good idea to start some new initiatives, because you might have your fair share of luck, or indeed more than your fair share of luck, provided you don't spend too much money. I think there may be a tendency, particularly if you're in America, towards the end of the day, to spend money on things that really are quite unnecessary. So that is something that you need to watch for. Now, as far as relationships are concerned, regardless of where you live, whether you're in America, Australia, whatever, Venus, there's Venus in Leo, is making or is within a quincunx aspect of Saturn. Now, what a quincunx is an 150-degree aspect. It is a minor aspect, but it can be difficult. Venus is a planet of love, relating, harmony, and it's making this quincunx to Saturn. So what's that all about? It's really not being reciprocated. We try our best to relate, but the circumstances are just not right. Maybe other people are cold and unfeeling. Maybe they just don't see what we're trying to say. The signals we're trying to give off may be misinterpreted, or they may just be missed. So be aware of that, but don't take it too personally. This Venus-Saturn quincunx it's a minor aspect, and it will soon move away, and things should get back to normal. Now, as far as my forecasts for the 12 signs are concerned, let's see what happens for June the 13th, which is a Tuesday. Aries, you've probably done as much as you can, at least in the short term. Wait for the current situation to develop before taking further action. Taurus, you want attention, or at least recognition, but it is being denied to you. You need to show modesty and patience. Gemini, you can get people to love you in a welcoming, platonic kind of way. In your social life, make sure it is you that has the last word. Cancer, there's a stupid power struggle which shouldn't be happening. Don't get involved and let everyone calm down before taking any initiatives. Leo, you're trying to be warm and friendly, but something is holding you back. You need to accommodate your own and other people's psychology. Virgo, it doesn't take much to make new friends. Just be yourself and don't overanalyze the situation. Libra, you can have all the positive vibes in the world, but it won't necessarily make a difference. Assume nothing and quietly put in the work. Scorpio, a few finishing touches are required. Then you can move on to the next stage. Not everyone can be open about their feelings. Sagittarius, the first impulse is exciting and you can make rapid progress. Then the pendulum moves back and you have to break through the barriers of boredom. Capricorn, something is coming to an end and there are feelings of pressure and also obsession. The switch to normality and happiness comes quickly. Aquarius, you have explained everything and now it's a matter of letting the message sink in. It may take longer than expected. And finally, Pisces. Money is not an easy issue to deal with, and finding agreement could be difficult. But in the end, a change of scene could be beneficial. Now, before I move to the I Ching, I would like to point out that there's one aspect that I forgot to mention, and that is the fact that the moon today is making a 90 degrees square aspect to Pluto. And, this aspect could be a bit difficult. From an emotional perspective, we've already heard that Venus is quincunx Saturn, making relationships a bit stressful. And with the moon square Pluto, there could be a certain amount of emotional intensity. People keeping their feelings to themselves, not really being able to relate, not really being able to express themselves, but the feelings haven't gone away. They may just be burning under the surface. So today, when you're dealing with people, you need to be aware of that. Now, I'm going to move away from astrology and talk about the I Ching. So, as usual, I cast the coins, asking the question, what will Tuesday be like for visitors to my channel? And the first hexagram I got was 61, inner truth. It's all about finding the truth today. And yes, we can find it, but it could be difficult. And this hexagram has a number of moving lines. And the first piece of advice that we're given here is, if we want to find the truth, we need to be very independent-minded. We can't be too close to other people, and we must certainly avoid having secret connections. We might think that we can find the truth by, for example, having behind-the-scenes meetings where we can perhaps gossip and, ask, in the gossipy kind of way, well, what happened? What did he do? What did she do? Whatever, all that kind of stuff. If you do that, you will never find the truth. You will just find lies. So bear that in mind. So if you can avoid the gossip, if you can be independent, you might feel that at a certain stage you've found it. You know what's happening. But there's a further problem. You find the truth, and then you might try to talk about the truth. You might try to tell people what is the truth. And, but what the things you say, the things we say about the truth, when we start talking about our view of the world, we're convinced we've got it right. We're convinced we got all the answers. It'll just be words. The words won't make any sense. No one's going to listen. It's just going to be so much hot air. So, yes, we need to find the truth, but we need to be very modest about finding the truth. We have to find the truth in a quiet, reflective kind of way. And when we do find the truth, we mustn't be tempted to talk about it, because when we start talking about the truth, and worse still, gossiping about the truth, at best no one will listen. At worst, people will be, people, including us, will be deceiving ourselves. Now, the inner truth moves. The hexagram moves, and the second hexagram that it moves to is hexagram number 7, the army. So at a certain stage, we can start to discuss what the real answers might be. And we need to do this on a need-to-know basis. There are people we do trust, people who are prepared to listen to us, and that's the army. The army is about gathering people around us, but not to gossip, but to take action. Because once you know the truth, you actually have to act on this truth and actually do something about it. So I hope that makes some sense to you, and that you can bring this I Ching reading into your life. But remember, it's just one day. Tomorrow is another day, and what I'm talking about might sound dramatic, but really what can happen in one day? Probably in most cases not a great deal, but really whatever you do, just today don't gossip, because if you gossip, you'll be in the end lying to yourself. Anyway, that's all I'm going to say for today, and I will talk to you tomorrow.